huge welcome to Dr. Vignesh. Thank you so much for coming back again. I see, because I'm muted, everybody, if you could just unmute yourself for a moment. There we go. Okay, so
Yes.
I'm going to quickly
Thank you,
press
Elaine.
record, and yeah, just say thank you so much for joining. I know it's like 10:30 there at night for you already. It was an absolute pleasure last year, and I mean, you really have been, and you know, I say it quite openly, just one of my favorite teachers over the years. I've had the pleasure of visiting Dr. Vignesh's Ayurvedic Center Beach Resort in Kerala in India twice. And I, you know, I know I put it in the WhatsApp, but it really was life-changing for my health. It was something that I did post my chemo journey, but it's something that honestly, if you want a reset of your body and just to readdress your health, doing a Panchakarma was a life-changing experience. And I landed up the year later actually going again to do it. And it's kind of a lot of the principles I've utilized and carried through in my everyday life. So I was lucky enough to see Dr. Vignesh at the beginning of the year, and just so happy that he could come back and visit our kitchen. So thank you again, and I'm going to hand it over to you, and yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. It's always a pleasure to connect with South Africa and especially Cape Town. But do we have people outside of Cape Town as well, or it's just full of
Yes.
South Africa?
Yes, quite a
Okay.
few. We've got Ireland, Scotland,
Wow.
Israel, Germany. Where else? I think that somebody, Poland is here, and then I think a couple of American friends are going to be tuning in a few minutes as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And first of all, thank you, Elaine. The way you make it feel like it's not a virtual, it's actually like a home event. The way you greet everyone and to make them feel comfortable and that feel like home kind of a setup. Only thing that is missing is the snacks and some tea.
Yes.
That's perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about in case if you see me yawning, please, it's nothing about you guys, it's just my time zone. So forgive me for my yawn, but I will try to cover it up because yawning can be very contagious. So today we are talking about health and vitality. No, it's immunity and vitality.
Yes.
Yes. Now, well, anyway, health is also part of it. Now, there has been a lot of talk about immunity today, and since the last year's March onwards, immunity has become one of the most required hashtags everywhere. Now, I want to improve my immune system. And there's also another thing, immunity has a lot to do with vaccinations. But immunity, according to Ayurveda, it's much more than a vaccination. It is much more about how is your internal ability to fight against something that is coming up to you. Now, there are people who live very healthy. They try to eat healthy, they try to go to sleep on time, they don't drink, they don't smoke, things like fictional characters. And then you hear that he died of a heart attack at a very young age. And on the other hand, you hear about people who are not so healthy in their habits and they live a very long life. But not sure if they lived healthy, that's another thing, but they lived a very long life. So, what was common between the people who lived long? So, is it really the healthy habits? Does healthy habits really make it an important foundation for having good immunity and vitality? By the way, the word vitality in Ayurveda, there is a word called as ojas. And the word ojas literally means the epitome of your highest health. It's like your ability to deal with any challenges that happens to your body and your ability to recover from this is just phenomenal. It's like immunity is your every human being who is alive has an immunity, but vitality is the highest form of that immunity. Does that make sense? Like, you go beyond. I mean, sometimes people call it asymptomatic, these kind of words that show up today. It's actually because their immunity is quite good, or to some extent their vitality levels are quite good. So in the story that I was telling about, there are people who live healthy from outside, but still they got a heart attack earlier, and there are people who need not look that they are living healthy, but still they live long enough. What is it that is happening with them? In Ayurveda, the word Ayurveda literally means, it has two sounds, Ayur and Veda. Ayur means longevity or life, and Veda means wisdom. So it's a wisdom of living your healthiest self, the wisdom of living your longest life with a lot of vitality, because nobody wants to live long if they are going to be not healthy. So sometimes, when you ask people, oh, I wish I can do it when I'm old, and some people will ask you, do you want to live that long? The reason why people say, do you want to live that long, is they don't have uh, confidence that they will be healthy in their old age. And there's also a statement in the Vedas, one of the best blessings that we all can have is to die peacefully. Okay. Now, die peacefully, people think, how is that a blessing? Because we all are aware that death is something that is inevitable. But at the same time, we are also afraid of death. But dying peacefully is like one of the greatest gifts every soul can have, because he is able to move on to the next level easily. We are so afraid of breakups, we are so afraid of job loss, we are afraid of changing, we are so afraid of moving out of our comfort zones, and we are also afraid of coming out of our patterns. So this ability to change is a very difficult part in our body. So when somebody says one of the greatest gifts that we can have is to have a peaceful death, it actually means you are able to move on to next phase of your life in a effortless manner. Sometimes we are so obsessed with our comfort zone, even though that comfort zone need not be the best zone that we could have. There could be a lot more beyond that comfort zone. So Ayurveda talks about what are the techniques to make these shifts in regular times of our life and how to come out of that. And we all will have different transits in our life. Like when we are born, that's a transit. Our soul uh, fits into a body and we come out of our mother's womb. That's a transit period. Transit, I hope you understand the word transit. You land in Dubai and then you got on another flight. That's called as transit. So a soul gets onto the body and it comes out. It's another transit. And then when you grow up, there are different transits. You reach teenage and then you reach adulthood. And then sometimes, okay, women, they have menopause. That's another transit. It's like the second phase of their life after menarche. And then you have old age, and in between there are many other transits, like you getting a job, you graduated, and then some people will get married, some people will have kids, some people will have grandkids, some people start quit their job and start their business, some people stop everything and go for a travel. There are so many changes that happens in our life, and our ability to equip so that these transits are smooth is something that is going to make our life beautiful. And the word immunity and vitality is our ability to go through these transit points. So what are the key transits in our body? That's why in Ayurveda we have this word called as dosha. The word dosha, I mean, especially in Europe and America, we have this word dosha quiz. You go to internet, I want to know what is my dosha. Um, and I want to know, am I Vata, Pitta, Kapha? If you have read about Ayurveda, if you're new to Ayurveda, it's fantastic. I will give you a much clear understanding, because many people misunderstood this concept. The Ayurveda has a obsession with this word called as dosha. And if you read in many books, it talks about what are your doshas. Is it, am I vata, am I pitta? Vata means wind, pitta means your fire, and kapha means your earthy element and water element. So people are obsessed, I want to know what type am I, and so that according to that I can start living. But that's a very lazy translations done by many Americanized authors. Why I say, on one hand, I'm grateful to many of the American authors because they really popularized the concept of Ayurveda. But I also understand why it has been a lazy translation, because the words used in Sanskrit are very difficult to be translated in one single terminology in English, because it has a profound way of looking at things. So Ayurveda says, when we are able to bulletproof ourselves from our doshas, now I'll come back to the word dosha, our health is fantastic and phenomenal. But when we become constantly a victim of doshas, then our life is a miserable condition. The word dosha literally means, many people read it as what is my body type. But actually, the word dosha literally means what is my trigger. So, what is my trigger that will make me upset? That will make me upset mentally, that will make me upset physically, that will upset my gut, that will upset my skin, that will upset my peace of mind, all of that. So we all could have different triggers. Triggers such as, if somebody is gluten intolerant, what that person is saying is, my body gets triggered with the gluten. If I am lactose intolerant, if I have lactose, it could create some problems within me. So understanding what is triggering me. But what has happened is, now the Ayurvedic system, it is limited to just to understand what is triggering, and then you have to eliminate that. That is not what Ayurveda talks about. Ayurveda is, the deeper meaning of Ayurveda is, once you understand what is triggering you have to understand why it is triggering you and go beyond that and try to make friends with that. But of course, eliminating that in the beginning is a fantastic, you know, idea. It's like, let's say you have a love hate relationship. Suddenly you fall in love with this person, and the moment you fall in love with that person, within the third day you want to kill that person, or you want to run away from that person. And then once you go away from that person, suddenly, why am I missing him again? Then you go back to that person again, and then suddenly you leave that person, and then there is a yo-yo effect happening. And that's the same with many of the intolerances. Some people are so much addicted to sugar, gluten, lactose. It's like, I don't know if addiction is the right word, but somewhere we feel so good when we eat that, but then later we feel sick after eating that. So definitely, like I told you about this love hate relationship, maybe in the beginning it is good to have a distance. But then later, even if you think about this person, even if you see this person, even if you come across this person, or even if some memories about this person comes across, you feel it is not affecting you anymore. And that is the stage of healing. And that is what Ayurveda talks about. And in many books, you see that understanding your triggers and eliminating the triggers is the way. That is not the true. That is just the first step. So, how do we understand our triggers? Before that, there is a concept I have wanted to explain. It is called as Satmya. The word Satmya in Sanskrit means that which is wholesome to our body. For example, if I am thirsty, if I drink some water, that water is wholesome for me. If I am in a very hot place, then pouring some water over me, it can help me to cool down. That is wholesome for me. If I am hypoglycemic, there is low glucose or sugar, and I feel tired, then taking a candy or some sugary food is wholesome for me, because that is helping me to stay awake, stay alert, stay alive. Sometimes we can get into excess mode. For example, if even water can be of some excess, if you consume even water in excess, it can damage your system. So if I eat a little bit of sugar today and I feel fantastic, tomorrow and I want to have more sugar, maybe my body will crave for a little more because my palate, the taste buds, wants to have some more. So then maybe I will add a little more of sugar. And then if I keep doing this regularly and time comes, I need more and more sugar to feel that tastiness. The same with salt, the same with fried food, same with alcohol, the same with entertainment, same with including stress. So same including coffee. You know, the first day I'm happy with one coffee. Sometimes I need two coffees. Sometimes I need three coffees. So the body in English, we the best word to translate the word satmya is wholesome, and the opposite of satmya or another word of satmya is oka satmya. Oka satmya means even if I abuse my body has a fantastic threshold to handle that. Now, when I say threshold, the best examples that you can give, uh, like, you know, when you play an instrument, let's say a string instrument, the first day you keep the finger on a string, it will hurt you. Second day, your skin will start getting, thick skin, so that it doesn't hurt you anymore. The same with every aspect. First day, we can be sensitive to it, but after some time, our body tend to have a huge threshold to handle things in excess, which could be not so easy for our body to handle. Now, this increasing the threshold is considered to be the beginning of many diseases. And this increasing of the threshold, tolerating many things that are abusive, not healthy for our system, over a long period, the best example we can talk about is the frog in a boiling water. You know, in the beginning, the water is warm, you feel so good. And then it gets even more warmer, but then your ability to tolerate heat will also go up. And the time comes, bam, you cannot jump out of the frog cannot jump out of the water because it's really boiling. Many people come to know about chronic illness, irreversible diseases, allergies, all of this in the later stages. So, what Ayurveda says is catch the monster while it is young. Once you let it grow, it's going to be really difficult for you to handle it. Now, today, when we talk about how to improve your immunity, is if your immunity is good, that means your sensitivity to the monster that is young is very good. You don't wait for the monster to grow. Because once the monster grows, your ability to fight it is going to be very difficult. That is when we need external support system like the modern medicines and the mainstream medicines. First of all, with all due respect, we have to appreciate modern medicine because it is only because of modern medicine the current longevity has increased a lot. I mean, pre-antibiotic era, we were always worried about dying with an infectious disease. But today, what has happened is we stopped trusting how our body is working. We stopped trusting how the healing powers of our body are. And everything that you go and buy from a pharmacy, it is already available in the body. Be it a painkiller, it's already there in our body. Be it a sleeping pill, melatonin is already being released in our body. Be it a synthetic hormone replacement therapy or estrogen, progesterone, insulin, it's already there in our body. Everything that you get from the pharmacy, it is already there in our body and it's just a synthetic replica. And because we abused to some extent and its natural ability to produce is weak, then we have to start depending on the pharmaceutical synthetic drugs. And the more we depend on the pharmaceutical synthetic drugs, what is happening is we train our body not to produce its natural ways of producing what it used to. And then one day it doesn't mean that it stops producing, it loses its ability to produce on its own. So we have to understand where did we miss this bus. And many of us are we when we live in a world where things are quite safe, infectious diseases, let's not worry about the current pandemic. Yes, even though it is worrying a lot of us, but at the same time, what I mean is, in this scope of conversation, uh, what we mean is, we live in one of the best times the humanity has lived. When we read about the history, at one point of time, life was quite difficult. I mean, if you read about the plague, if you read about some of the infectious diseases that has happened, things were really not that easy. And today, our infant mortality rate is just phenomenal compared to what it used to be in the back in one time. The longevity of human beings has increased manyfold. Somebody is having a heart attack, our ability to put a stent is just phenomenal. I mean, within just few hours, if we have the possibility to take that patient to intensive care, we can bring that life back. So modern medicine is just magic when it comes to emergency medicine. But it is more like a plastic. Plastic is fantastic. It changed the way we transport stuff. It helped the way to store things. It increased the shelf life of many things. It is a fantastic waterproof stuff. But if we overuse it, it's very dangerous for the nature. But if you use it judiciously, it's a fantastic invention. So the same with modern medicine. If we are in a position to live in a very good manner, our need to depend on modern medicine is much less. In fact, people ask me, whenever I travel in flights, especially to outside India, then people ask me, what do you do? And I say, I'm a doctor. And then the next question is, what doctor are you? And then when I say Ayurvedic doctor, what is that? Suddenly they misunderstand Ayurveda to be something like aloe vera. And then when I tell them, okay, it's a science traditional system that is followed in India, and we use a lot of herbs and all these things. Then they look at, and then they ask me things like, so do you have enough evidence and research on that? And then I don't waste my time convincing more on that. Then I suddenly, we find ways to distract and look at other things. So when people ask what is the difference, if they are open about Ayurveda, and then you answer them to understand the difference between Ayurveda and modern medicine. See, modern medicine is humanity's answer to the question, how can I add more years to my life? And Ayurveda is human answer to humanity's question, how can I add more life to my years? It's not just having longevity that matters. It is living well also that is more important. In fact, when you ask many people, do you want to live long or you want to live short? So then people will always say, I want to live long. But if that comes with a prerequisite, if you live long, it's not going to be healthy. But if you live short, you'll have a lot of health. And people always choose for the first option. I want to live short, but I want to live healthy. But the best ideal scenario is, I want to live long and I want to live healthy and I want to be full of vitality and full of life. And that is the beauty of this hybrid model that we have today. And at one point of time, um, calling yourself an Ayurvedic doctor, it has to be under the carpet. But now it is becoming more and more open, and we are able to talk openly about it. And that is the beauty of this time. Anything that is not working, we are able to question it, and that's the beauty of the current times that we are living. Yes, there are places where things cannot be questioned, but at the same time, we see that it's not how it used to be at one point of time. At one point of time, if you said that the earth is not the center of the world, then I mean, center of the universe, you could be stone pelted and killed. But today we do have the option to question many things. So in this understanding about how our triggers are going, where are these triggers coming from, how to change these triggers, there are certain non-negotiables that we have to understand. And these non-negotiables today, mainstream medicine and many researchers are coming, and that is, these non-negotiables are in Ayurveda. There is a chapter in a book called Ashtanga Hridayam. It means 8 parts of Ayurveda, and it is the heart of Ayurveda. It talks about what are the causes for the origin of a disease. Now, origin of a disease means that is when the disease starts its, um, it starts to think, okay, now it is time to create a disease. Now, where does the disease start getting its powers? In Ayurveda, it is mentioned when somebody stops or suppresses their natural urges, that is going to be the beginning of their disease. Now, let us understand what are these urges. One of the urge is going to the toilet. If I'm having an urge to urinate, or if I'm having an urge to poop, if I'm having an urge to eat, if I'm having an urge to sleep, if I'm having an urge to sneeze, if I'm having an urge to cough, there are many natural urges in our body. If I'm having an urge to cry, all these urges, if you suppress it once, twice, it's okay. But when this becomes repetitively, that can lead to our body becomes numb to our own feedback. When I say numb, it means, um, remember we said kill the monster when it is young. When do we allow the monster to grow is when we stop listening to our intelligence or to the urges. The word for pain in Ayurveda is called as ruk in Sanskrit. The word ruk literally means that anything that blocks the flow of energy. So if I am having pain somewhere, that means the energy flow is blocked there. So if the energy flow is blocked, it means it is communicating something needs to change. And if I don't listen to it, and if I take a painkiller, once it's okay, twice it's okay, thrice, to a great extent, the body will handle it. And then the painkillers dosage has to increase. And then every time I get a pain, then I have to resort to the painkiller. And over time, what happens? The liver toxicity will happen. And the body gets saturated, the painkiller will not work anymore. Just like an alcoholic, the first day he needs one glass of wine to feel high. Maybe after 2 or 3 months of regular practice, he needs one bottle to feel high, the same high. Same way, the body gets this threshold going up. So, in this threshold going up starts with suppressing many of our urges. When we stop being sensitive, when we stop listening to our body. And that is why the word for health in Ayurveda is called as swastha. Swastha means it has two sounds, swa and sta. The word swa means, like in India, we have this, the independence movement was called as Swatantra. Swatantra means it's time that we take control of our own place. That's what the independence movement is called as Swatantra movement. And the same way, the health is called as Swastha. Swa means my purest self or my own true self. And sta means to be connected or to be established. So when we are connected with ourselves, that means we are very sensitive to how our body is feeling. And the more we suppress our feelings, the more we disconnect from our feelings, that is when this ease starts. We don't feel ease anymore. Today, we see that many diseases are preventable in nature. Meaning most of the deaths that are happening are completely preventable in nature. And Ayurveda talks about every disease can be classified into two types: diseases of malnourishment and diseases of overconsumption. Now, diseases of malnourishment is somebody suffering from marasmus or dehydration, anemia, vitamin deficiency, anorexia, bulimia. All this falls under the diseases of malnourishment. And diseases of overconsumption is somebody suffering with overweight, obesity, high blood pressure, high levels of uric acid, and gouty arthritis, inflammatory disorders. All these are diseases of overnutrition. And Ayurveda says treating diseases of malnourishment is way easier than treating diseases of overconsumption, because Somebody is dehydrated, you just give them water. Somebody is anemic, supplement them with iron or improve their iron intake. Somebody is vitamin deficient, supplement them with whatever vitamins they need. If it's vitamin D, expose them to good sunlight. But if somebody is having too much of fat, plaque, high levels of uric acid, you just cannot get it out of the system like that. And that is why it is mentioned in Ayurveda, treating diseases of overconsumption is way more difficult than treating diseases of malnourishment. However, many diseases today that we see are a blend of both. That is why we have this term overfed, undernourished. People eat, they still feel tired, they still crave for food, but still they feel tired and they want to eat more. Something went missing there. They feel tired, but they cannot sleep, but they are not able to wake up. Something is missing there. Now, this is happening because somewhere they were not listening to the body's communication. And over time, the body is trying to figure out what exactly is happening on its own. The body itself is getting confused. It's like you are using 90s Microsoft to stream today's Netflix when we are able to overdoing things that we are not supposed to handle. And in fact, there is a study which said in the 10,000 BC, the consumption of sugar was like 20 teaspoons per year. And today we are consuming like 22 teaspoons per day. And it's the same human body that was 10,000 BC. We haven't changed much. In fact, our brain is also like a 200,000-year-old organ. We haven't changed much. But our technology has changed, our lifestyle has changed. With the span of 14 hours, we can go from the farthest planet, I mean, the farthest continent to the another continent. Yes, even planet is possible in the coming future. So what has happened is our external circumstances allowed a lot more abundance with food, with not, it is not much required to move our body. So what happened is today more and more people are dying because of overconsumption than because of malnourishment. And that doesn't mean people are not dying because of malnourishment, but if you see, at one point of time, more people used to die because of malnourishment. Today, more people are dying because of overconsumption. Heart attack, the number one killer of humanity. It's a disease of overconsumption. Cancer, another major disease of humanity. This is also completely dependent on overconsumption. Now, all of this is happening because we are not training ourselves. In fact, we are training ourselves to be disconnected from our system. We are training ourselves to be disconnected from our natural intelligence. So, how do we train ourselves to connect with our intelligence system? It starts with being invested in your feelings. Now, when we say feelings, I'm not talking about the mental chatter. I'm talking about how do you feel after you eat. We're not talking about when you eat. We're talking about how do you feel after you eat. In Ayurveda, there is a concept called as Vipaka. The word Vipaka means aftertaste of a food. Like we have a taste when we eat. Afterwards, how do you feel? There is a taste in our mouth that comes after we have food. How is that taste afterwards? And how is your feeling after the food? Does it make you feel light, energetic, or does it make you feel sick or bloated or heavy or sluggish? Today, most of the food that we have, it will make you feel good at that point of time when you're eating. And later, if it is making you feel sick, that is when we are disconnected with ourselves. And that's why I was reading the difference between robbery and business. There's not much difference. There's only one difference between robbery and business. Both have one thing in common, that is change of assets. There is a change of assets from one person to another person. In robbery, it happens without the other person's knowledge or consent, whereas in business, it happens with the other person's consent. But in both, certain things are being changed. And today, what the food companies are doing, when we eat so many things, we feel so good when we are eating, but later we feel so sick. So, how to understand if this food is good for us? There are so many books, so many nutritional concepts: keto, Paleolithic, intermittent fasting, vegan. Should I try vegetarian? Should I try only fat? Should I try only raw food? And people who eat raw food, when they eat people eating milk, they don't want to look at them anymore. And people who eat meat, they look at vegetarians like, how on earth do they live? How is it possible for them to even survive without eating meat? So what is correct? There are many things, there is no universal law that only this works for everyone. But there is one definite guide when it comes to nutritional advice, and that is, what is your feeling after the food? And we are not talking about intolerances or allergies after the food. We are talking about those subtle energies. How do you feel the next morning after the previous dinner? How do you feel after your lunch? Do you feel your energy is dipped? You feel bloated? You feel how's your emotions? Now, being aware of these subtle energies and subtle shifts in our body, that is the first step to connect with your inner self. And the whole idea of Ayurveda, the beginning, it talks about, in order to maintain your health, you have to be invested in your feelings. You have to listen to your nature's urges. And if you suppress it, it will lead to many complications. So, see, this is a concept not many people understand, because whenever we talk about immunity, people talk about you have to take some vitamin C or get some vitamin D supplements, get some sun, get sleep, do exercise, drink enough water. We all know that. And at the same time, there are people who overdo exercise and they feel sick afterwards. There are people who overdo many things and they fall sick. So, this ability to connect with our inner self. So if somebody says he's full of vitality, what that person is saying is he's able to listen to that body's intelligence. He's able to connect with that body's intelligence for a very long period in a consistent manner. When somebody says he's been sick, what that person is saying is he has been disconnected from his own inner feelings. He has not been listening to his inner feelings. Now, one question comes: I do get some overthinking. I do get anxious. Does that mean I should think to my fears of overthinking? We are not talking about the patterns of overthinking. We are talking about your energy levels. We are talking about how is your body responding to every situation and how is your body responding to a situation later onwards. This ability to connect, definitely, if you look at the word yoga, we understand it is a asanas, it is movement of the body, it is stretching, it is pranayama. The word yoga literally means union, ability to blend, ability to merge with your true self. There is an intelligence inside us that is beyond our logic. The energy that created our body is the same energy that created the sun, moon, stars, the oceans, the mountains. The powers of this intelligence that is inside of us, even the science is just light years away from what it is, what how our body is functioning. Yes, if it is so advanced, we still don't have a medicine for a common cold or a flu, but we can do decoding of the genome, we can do organ transplantation. But there are certain things that we do not know how it is done. We do not know from where the nails are coming, we do not know why the hair is growing, we do not know what makes a child girl or a boy. I mean, there are some hypotheses, but so many things are still unknown. And that intelligence is something that we have to embrace. And I don't mean that we should not question that. We should definitely go further with our research and scientific approach to understand why certain things are happening. But there are certain things that are non-negotiable, at least for our generation, for the next few centuries, because it takes some time for the species to evolve as well. Now, when I say this, see, our brain is a 200,000-year-old organ. At one point of time, when the brain was evolving from the monkeys to who we are today, the Homo sapiens, our brain was designed in such a way that we crave for sugar, or we crave for sweet, salt, and fat. Because at those times, whenever you got food, if it is something sweet, you wanted to eat more because you need more glucose to run and escape and to survive. And salt means you have enough electrolytes. Fat means it is protection for your body. But today, we devised things in such a way that these things can be created in a synthetic manner, and these things are just meeting your palatable needs, but in the long run, it is harming you. So, what is happening is we are tricking ourselves to understand, am I really connected with myself? See, at one point of time, it was very difficult to overeat sugar. Okay, yes, after the honey came, it was different. After the refined white sugar came, it became completely different. So, it is time we go back to some of the ancient ways of living, which is much more time tested. At the same time, blend with the modern way of understanding how certain things can be embraced. So that is why today Ayurveda is becoming more and more popular than any other time. Because when longevity is increasing, the need for Ayurveda is going to get more and more important. But people come and say when they visit India, and they say that I came to India, but I don't see not many people are practicing Ayurveda. It is actually because there is major part of India is still in poverty. I don't know if it's major part, but definitely a lot of India is still in poverty, and it is still coming out of it. Mainstream medicine works best in places where there is poverty, because they have infectious disease, they have terminal disease. And Ayurveda works fantastic when you have the basics of your life met, and then you are having issues of abundance, because Ayurveda talks moderation. Ayurveda talks about balancing. Ayurveda talks about how you can connect with your inner self. It doesn't mean that Ayurveda doesn't work for people, not living only for people in that. It's just that modern medicine is much more cheap, effective, and a hungry person doesn't have the. If you go and tell a hungry person who is living in a very poor area, you should go to sleep on time and you should not eat just junk food, he's not going to understand that concept. He's in a different mindset altogether. That is why there is no philosophy in a hungry body. So that is where Ayurveda is becoming more and more popular today. And one of the aspects of Ayurveda that we can take away for immunity and vitality, be very obsessed about how your body is feeling, and always be a scientist of your feelings. Why do you get these feelings? When I say about feelings, I'm not just talking about the emotions. I'm talking about, do you feel energetic? Is it sustainable? And is this energy going up and down? If you feel high because of coffee and then the next moment you feel low, you need to question, is that what I want? We want sustainable things. See, anyone who takes drugs and wins a sports race, we don't claim that is good. We want to see the natural things. The same with our body. We don't want to feel energetic with an artificial stimulant. We want to feel naturally. We want to get the energy from the natural sources. And that is what the world rewards, when things are natural. And these connections starts with your breath, being aware of your breathing, being aware of the taste, being aware of how do you feel after you eat, and being aware of your need for hydration, and then being aware of your need for resting, and of course going to sleep. uh, when people say I have a difficulty falling asleep at night, what that person is saying is they trained their body in such a way that their hormone melatonin doesn't release on time anymore, because it's a training that happens. And when somebody says I'm having chronic constipation since childhood, there was a time when going to toilet was not so easy for me and I had a lot of shame, or I was afraid of using public toilets, and then that became a pattern. So you see, the retreat that I run, Sitaram Beach retreat, when people come here, when people ask what do you do here, and we tell them we train them to sleep on time, we give them toilet training, and if they have excess toxins in the body, we help them to make it, get it out of the system, and then we retrain them what it means to relax. And once you put all of these things together, then health is a eventual byproduct. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to get some secret herbs from Himalayas or Tibet and give it, and only then the health happens. In fact, being healthy is quite easy. We just need to learn not to do many things that we are doing. And training people not to do is going to be the next big thing when it comes to getting back to health. So, immunity and vitality today is more than what do I need to do extra. It is what all things I should stop doing. So surrender to the circadian rhythm. It's a very powerful stuff. Circadian rhythm means going to sleep early. Okay, tonight I am staying awake. Once or twice or thrice, your body can handle. But if this becomes a pattern, then the body doesn't understand what is true and what is not true. And then it starts reacting to the external environment. And then going to sleep early, waking up early in the morning. This is considered one of the prerequisites for longevity and vitality. It doesn't say if you want to live long and healthy and vital, full of vitality, then you should consider waking up early. No, it says the other way. If you want to live long and healthy, then waking up early is a non negotiable. That is how it is mentioned. And if you want to wake up early means you have to go to sleep also early. That means you are able to do that. So that is the first step, because once you do that, once you're connected with the sun's movement, then our ability to connect with our feelings also goes up. If we train our body to stay awake very late at night, we release cortisol and people feel awake. And that's why some people say, I'm a night owl, I'm able to do creative work only at night. That's what they're saying is, I release a lot of cortisol, and when cortisol is released, we feel alive and alert. And that's not a healthy way of feeling alert, because next morning you're going to wake up very tired. Healthy person goes to sleep tired at night, wakes up fresh in the morning, not the other way around. Today, many people say, I am awake and alert and energized at night and very tired in the morning. Just by shifting these two things, we make a huge difference in our nervous system. We make a huge difference in our hormonal release, endocrine system, our metabolism, our digestion, our tendency of the body to want the right things, and our ability to say no to things that are not good for us. All of this, it can start with your awareness with your breath, awareness with your food eating habits, awareness about how you feel after food, and surrendering to the circadian rhythm. These are certain things. And apart from that, Ayurveda also talks about if you have a tendency of putting a lot of stress to your body, be it with food, be it with mental work, be it with a lot of stress with many deadlines and stuff, it is time that you take time off from that and distract with things that will connect with your true self. It could be connecting with nature. It could be things like, see, the word for fasting in Ayurveda, it is called as upavasa. Vas means me, upa means near. So when I stop myself from consuming things that are not healthy for me, I am spending more time with my true self. I'm getting close to my true self. And that is what fasting actually means. And today we need to do fasting not just with food, including things that are triggering you, including social media, including things that are not just helping you in any ways. So every week, today we live in a highly consumption. Today we have more of abundance problems than scarcity problems. So it is some way, somehow, we need to find a way to come out of that overconsumption problems. And that starts with some days. Imagine you are living in a world where there is no internet, Imagine, you don't have any emotional triggers or excitement. You spend time in nature as much as possible. You are with yourself, you journal. And because why we say is, today the cognitive load every human being is exposed to is just beyond what any human could think of 2 decades ago. What we used to imagine, what only James Bond could have, even a local fisherman in India can have today. That's the ability of the technology that has gone exponentially developed. So it is time we take time off from these once in a while. And that way, what happens is we are able to connect with our inner self. And eating seasonal fruits, eating home cooked food, and avoiding things which are as chemical as, eliminating stuff that are chemical in nature. So when we say about disconnecting from social media, disconnecting from things that are exciting, it also includes food. One day, 1 day a week, try to limit food that are too salty, sweet, fried, and spicy. Eat bland food. And this is one way to reset your taste mechanism, taste receptivity. So, when your taste receptivity improves, what happens is your ability to appreciate what is real is also getting better. Otherwise, you need more and more just to get that distraction, or things like emotional eating. Then you're not able to understand what is really good. See, last time when I was in Cape Town, when I was driving through um, the garden route, I saw that don't feed the, what's that monkey called? Cocoons, or don't feed them, because what happens is once you feed them, they forget what is their true food. And I was thinking, why isn't this applicable to humans as well? Then this is what is happening to humans too. Once you eat these processed food, we forget what is really good for us, and we get so addicted with that. And it's not that those animals don't have willpower. We also don't have that willpower. Our willpower is very, very limited when it comes to certain food. And that is why I say is the food companies, how they are dealing, it's not much different from robbery and business. It's actually a robbery what is happening, because they have hijacked your sense organs, and we have surrendered in the name of democracy and consent. And it is time we bring this power back. And one of the first ways is to boycott these things at least once a day, so you understand how do you feel afterwards. And today, if we have to talk about immunity, it starts with our food. And when we say it starts with our food, uh, where does our cravings come from? Our cravings are coming from many of our conditioned patterns. And if we have to break that pattern, it starts with intense awareness, starting with your breath, starting with how you eat, how you feel, how to change that. And also try to be as mindful as possible when you eat. Like, it's like, you are having a very demanding partner who doesn't like you to look at anything else when you're with that partner. Even if you look at the phone, that's it, that partner will run away. The same intense approach, have it with the food, and see how it's going to change your digestion, how it's going to change your energy. And also see how you will also learn the art of saying stop, I'm done with this, I cannot have any more food. And that ability comes with our ability to be aware. So if we have to understand where to get immunity and vitality, it starts with our ability to be aware and connect back with our inner self. So we can go to some questions.
Okay, thank you so much. That was amazing. I just love hearing you chat about health, nutrition. I'm going to open the floor, and I'm sure that there are lots of people who are curious who might have any questions pertaining to health. So please put up your hand or unmute yourself and let me know. I mean, it's a real treat to have Dr. Vignesh here. So just give me sort of a wave or unmute yourself. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity. So who wants to start it off? Oops. Anyone? You're also shy. Lee.
Yeehaw. Lee the
Hi.
unshy. Can you hear me? I'm very unshy when I'm hidden away behind a phone.
Oh, Lee Brown, it's so lovely to see you. Okay, shoot.
Hi. I've just got a question about, obviously it would be ideal if we could all come over to India again, but are there places that you recommend here? Because I'm really interested in starting this journey, but obviously recommendations help. And also, I mean, you mentioned a small, small interventions like starting to make your food more bland once a week and just a heightened sensitivity. But what would you say is the introduction, the kind of gateway drug, if you'd like, into Ayurveda in terms of treatments that are offered?
Uh, one is definitely, I can hear myself.
Lee, put your sound just so he's answering.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, introduction to Ayurveda.
I'll switch it on to mute.
Okay, so just to understand, is your question how to have the baby steps to get into Ayurveda? Did I understand it correct?
I know sound was off. My understanding was, because we can't come to India and visit you currently, what is
Mm-hmm.
the best way to get started being in South Africa, just in terms of, is there a place here? And then what are the steps to take that she could take um, at home, and the baby steps, just what you
Okay,
said.
so the baby steps is, eating food that are more home cooked, visiting farmers markets, spending more time in nature, and replacing lotions, creams with oils, and using good quality food when it comes to choosing the oils, introducing ghee into your diet. And if you're using a lot of uh, refined white sugar or artificial sweetness, remove that. Raid your pantry. That's the first step of introducing Ayurveda. And it's not that Ayurveda is like a only if you do this, this is Ayurveda. It's like anything that is going to enhance your longevity in an organic, natural way. That is Ayurveda. So that is there, and including integrate meditation into your life, mindfulness into your life,
Yoga.
and read. There are some books that I can recommend. One is of the Dr. Robert Svoboda, a book called Prakriti. That is one book I highly recommend. You can start reading about that. I can type it in the chat here.
Yes, please,
Books of
please.
Robert Svoboda. And I also have a podcast where I release an episode every week on certain tips on Ayurveda. So you can listen to that as well. You'll get an idea of what are the things that can be done.
Lee, did
Okay,
that?
there is a link called Linktree. You can find all the details there.
Okay. That's fantastic. So I hope all of you have seen. Just have a look in the chat. There is a link. Is that linked to your podcast?
There is a link to my podcast. There is a link to Sitaram. There is a link to my YouTube channel where I do all the talks on Ayurveda like this. It's all uploaded there.
Fantastic. Okay. Who else would like to ask a question? Yes, Claudia.
Hi, Dr. Vignesh. What an incredible
Claudia.
talk. Thank you so much. I wondered if you could perhaps elaborate a little bit on doshas and how, or maybe give us a bit of guidance as to how, where we can go read up about it and find out which one we are. Because I did it about 4 years ago, but at that time, I felt like I overlapped with a few. So it wasn't so distinct as to this is where I am.
Okay. So the word dosha is more over. It's totally torn out of the context today, and like I said, the once it got westernized, it became quite commercialized, and then it helped a lot of companies to sell their products once they know what is your dosha. So They were so invested into finding out, are you vata, so we can sell you these oils. If you're pitta, we can sell you these food to reduce your cravings. If you're kapha, we have these things to reduce your body fat. So, and you have to live with it for the rest of the life. So that is not the reality. I mean, that says that, we just need to balance in your imbalances, and the rest of the life you have to live like that. So to a great extent, many of the books that talks about dosha is quite racist in nature. They tell you that is how the rest of your life is going to be. But in fact, what Ayurveda talks about is, once you understand what are your triggers and how can you go beyond that, and what are the steps and techniques to go beyond that. So you just need to understand right now what is triggering you. I mean, just to have a clear understanding in 5 minutes, not in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes. If you have dry skin, your vata is high on your skin. If you have difficulty losing weight, then kapha is high in your body at this point of time. That's it. After few months, few weeks, it can change. If you have too much of heat in the body, you feel like, okay, I just need to turn on the air condition all the time, or I love to go to cold places, that means your pitta is high at this point of time. That's it. At this point of time, that's what you're having. It can change later. See, if they say dosha is going to be the same for the rest of your life, then how is it possible that people who are fat, they show that before after transformation photos, and people who are skinny, then they show their fat photos. So we don't have to be so obsessed with understanding what is my real dosha. And that is not the secret to many things that are going to happen. What we need to know, what is triggering me at this point of time in this aspect of my health. Is my skin dry? Maybe I need to put more oil there. Is my skin oily? That means I don't have to put so much of oil, and maybe I might have to reduce the oil intake or fried food intake into my food habits. So dosha is very generalized term that we talk in the internet quizzes and all the courses. But we have to be a specific oriented approach to doshas. So we don't have to be invested in to understand, am I really a vata type, pitta type, or kapha type? Let's say, is there something that you want to know in this aspect of your health? You want to know this dosha? If you're open to talk about it, Claudia.
Second. Gosh, there's always so much going on with
Yeah,
everything.
let's just talk about two aspects. Let's just talk about two aspects.
So I'm happy to speak about menopause and hot flashes.
Fantastic. So menopause is the time when the pitta goes up for 2 to 3 years, or it can also go up to 4 5 years. In some women it can go up to 5 years. Some women it starts it for some women, they say, I've been a very blessed, lucky person that I didn't have to go through this. So when the menopause is happening, if hot flashes is happening, the pitta is very high. And that doesn't mean you are a pitta type. It just means that in this phase, your pitta is high. So what that means is you have to bring down all the stuff that are going to increase the body heat, including your emotions such as frustration and anger. In fact, that's very difficult because frustration and anger increases the body heat. But telling a person who is already angry and telling that person don't be angry is the worst thing that you can do. And that makes them even more angry. They might want to burn you up. So what are the things what is the opposite of fire? Opposite of fire is anything that which is cooling down. So water, anything. See, whenever there is, okay, the best friend of fire is actually wind, because wind spreads the fire. And the enemy of fire is water, because water is cooling. Water always turns down the fire, right? So overthinking and anger and frustration in emotional aspects, this will create more problems to the fire, because the heat will spread all over your system. Any lifestyle that is going to increase your dryness, be it in your skin, be it in your gut, So how do we understand what is dryness? After you eat certain food, if you feel dehydrated, it is increasing your dryness. So let's say some people say when they take certain desserts, the next morning they feel dehydrated. Sometimes when they drink coffee, they feel dehydrated. So anything that which is dehydrating has to go out of your lifestyle, because dehydration is dryness, and dryness makes the fire element to spread faster in your system. So we want more hydration, foods that are rich in water, lifestyle where your skin is also hydrated well enough, things that will cool down your system. So spicy foods, going to Indian restaurants, you have to plan it after 2-3 years. And
Okay.
spending time in water bodies, near water bodies. I mean, if you have a beautiful water body, ocean, lake, swimming pool, go and spend time there. It's fantastic. So that's actually the science of doshas, but it has been highly confusing. In fact, next month I'm doing a workshop for practitioners, what it means to understand the dosha of a person for a practitioner's point of view. So I can send you the details of this workshop.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. I love what you say, because I think it's so important to bring the whole together and have a look at, the emotions, lifestyle, food, everything together. So that's really beautiful. And I also love the way that you say that I guess your doshas change with the season that you're in your life, or the stage, so it just feels more organic and really good. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Claudia.
Thanks, Claudia. And then just to that I remember, Dr. Vignesh, send me a WhatsApp so I can post it onto the group, and they can get
Sure.
yeah. So everybody, I will send all the information, the name of the book, about the course, all of that first thing tomorrow morning. Amy, I know Amy had a question.
Yes, thanks, Elaine, and thanks, Dr. Devraj. Very interesting talk. So Claudia was mentioning ladies that are going through menopause, but I would like to know, for women of childbearing age, what can we do to regulate our menstrual cycle and balance hormones? I'm talking specifically about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay. So was it diagnosed as a PCOS because of insulin resistance or something else?
Cysts on the ovaries and lack of having a period, or very irregular periods.
Okay. Any metabolic disorders associated, like diabetes, hirsutism, high levels of testosterone?
Yes, high androgen levels, but hair loss, but there's no hair on hirsutism at all. Just high androgens, hair loss, no periods, or very, very rare periods. Cysts on the ovaries.
Okay.
And high cholesterol.
Yeah. So on one hand, the PCOS is such a usually people misunderstand PCOS is something just to deal with. Just a minute. I had turned on the air con. I just need to turn it off. Yeah. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, according to Ayurveda, cyst is a collection of fluid. Do you agree with that?
Yes, agree.
Okay. Fluid is kapha. Anything that is water in element is kapha. Mucus is kapha, or the mucus not only that comes out of when you cough or sneeze, it's also the mucus in our body which are lodged as fat, cholesterol, all of these things. So if you see a metabolic disorder, there is a tendency of the body to convert food into fat instead of muscles or energies. So this inability to convert the food into energy is creating more kapha imbalance or excess kapha in the body. So we treat PCOS as the metabolism is weak, that is leading to excess kapha accumulation in the system. So on one hand, the kapha accumulation has to reduce, and it is just like the opposite of how we were treating the menopause. In menopause, we have to bring down the fire element and increase the kapha. But in PCOS, we have to bring down the kapha element and increase the fire element. Does that make sense? I mean, if I have to just give you a bird's eye view of how we Ayurveda looks at it.
That makes sense.
And by the way, just to let you know, PCOS, there are many different types of PCOS. And usually, people think that PCOS has a lot to do only with insulin resistance or things like that. There are also PCOS because if they are taking pill for a long time, that can also lead to PCOS. Even though pill is something that is prescribed for people suffering with PCOS, later stages it can lead to that. Sometimes even lack of enough micronutrients in the body can also lead to that. Too much of stress can also lead to PCOS. And even women who have a breakup, she could also have if she's going through a traumatic breakup, that can also lead to conditions like PCOS.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Dr. Vignesh. Is there anybody else? Let's see if there may be like 2 last questions. I know it's getting late for Dr. Vignesh, so anybody else, won't you just raise your hand, or any comments for the evening? Just going to have a look, quick see, sort of scouting the screen. Okay, so it looks like everybody's sort of well nourished, if I could use that term, from our talk tonight. I've absolutely loved it. I always love listening to you. Quickly, Claudia, please. Yes.
Is there any tip of breath work that you could recommend? Maybe one of your favorites?
Okay, so when it comes to menopause, there is a breath work. I mean, it's not my favorite, but I'm giving it something that you might be benefiting you, because menopause means too much of heat, especially if they are suffering with hot flashes, heat waves. There is a breathwork called Sitali. Sitali, actually, the word Sitali means to cool down, to bring coolness to the system. Sitali and Brahmari. You can check the Sitali. I'm just typing it there. Everyone in meeting, Sitali and Brahmari.
Perfect. Thank you.
This brings coolness to the body. You can check it how this is done. Many of the yoga teachers can help you find out.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just to add to that, Claudia, come do some yoga with me, and I can, and openly, I'm also going through menopause. So there are various things that I've been doing that are very helpful, and I can show you some of the breath work that Dr. Vignesh has mentioned. Okay, there was one person, there's just a chat, you've put it in. I'm going to sort of make notes of all of that. So if there's nobody else that has any questions as we end off the evening, I just want to say a huge thank you, Dr. Vignesh. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you in my kitchen. I'm really hoping that I could convince you in maybe a few months' time, or certainly when things get to a better stage in India, please God. There's so many of us that are so we're all keen to see each other and travel again and visit, but I am looking forward to one day visiting you again. So just thank you so much, and any of the information that you've shared with us and the courses. I've been listening to some of Dr. Vignesh's podcasts, and they're amazing. So I really highly recommend that. Pleasure, Kendall, so nice. So I know a lot of people have tuned in. So thank you again. I hope you go and have some rest, and we haven't disturbed your balance tonight, but I really appreciate you coming to visit.
Yes. Thank you all. So it was, as always, Elaine, thank you for doing this work and bringing all the people together and having this interaction and having this community feeling. It's really great what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you.
And thank you all.
Thanks, Dr. Vignesh.
Okay.
One day I'll
Bye.
come study with you in India.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.